History holds many hidden stories, tales of ambition, betrayal, and secrets whispered across centuries. But few are stranger than the story of the Roman emperor who decided he was not merely ruler of men, but a living god. This isn't myth, it is history, etched in marble, ink, and rumor, a true tale of power, madness, and divine ambition. Tonight, in this ancient history documentary for sleep, we walk the shadowed corridors of an empire and step into the mind of one of the creepiest figures ever to pace the marble halls of Rome. So pour yourself a cup of wine or chamomile tea, let the torchlight guide you, and prepare for a bedtime story that blurs the line between man and God. The emperor was young, charming, and dangerous. To his people, he already held the highest title on earth, the most powerful man in the known world. But as history so often reminds us, for some, power is never enough. He began to appear in public clad in the robes of Jupiter, the king of gods, his head crowned with golden rays. It was no longer enough to be emperor. He wanted to be worshipped. Temples rose under his command, not to the pantheon of ancient deities, but to himself. Marble statues bore his face in the place of gods who had stood for centuries. Priests offered sacrifices in his name. In the long catalog of Rome's historical mysteries, this was perhaps the boldest and most dangerous move any man had dared. Soon, the orders came. Citizens were to address him not as emperor, but as a god. Every word spoken to him had to carry the weight of prayer. In the great temples, priests now sacrificed in his name, smoke curling upward not to Jupiter or Mars, but to the man who sat on the throne. Even senators, the proudest men of Rome, were forced to bow until their foreheads touched the marble floor. Refusal was treason, and treason meant death. This was not the gentle rhythm of old religion, incense in quiet devotion. This was worship at sword point, a creeping historical truth that turned faith into fear and belief into survival. He staged games in his own honor, gladiators clashing not for Rome, not for the glory of the empire, but for his divine pleasure. Exotic beasts were led through the arena, their hides draped in gold and jewels, as if they too had been touched by his godhood. In the theaters, actors performed grand myths until the emperor himself stepped onto the stage, robed and crowned, playing the god he claimed to be. It was more than entertainment. It was spectacle and propaganda, woven together like silk and steel. Just as the OK Corral shootout was more than a gunfight, it was a performance of dominance. These displays told every soul in the empire, here stands a god who walks among you. Not everyone believed. Some whispered in the safety of shadowed courtyards. Others let their doubts slip over wine cups, trusting the wrong ears. A farmer refused to bow. A senator spoke too freely. Both vanished, swallowed by the machinery of imperial justice, their names scratched from the record as if they had never existed. This was the emperor's Rome, a city where every word could be a confession, and every glance could be mistaken for defiance. And in those days, even the gods of old, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, might have trembled to share their thrones with the mortal who claimed them for his own. And then, as with all who fly too close to the sun, he fell. In the very palace where he had been worshipped, his guards, the men sworn to protect him, turned their swords on their living god. Steel met flesh in the flicker of torchlight, and the man who once demanded the prayers of an empire crumpled to the marble floor. In the days that followed, his temples were torn down. His statues were dragged through the streets and shattered, the fragments scattered like the broken pieces of his ambition. Rome returned to its mortal rulers, but the shadow of his reign lingered. A reminder that even the gods, when made of flesh and blood, can bleed. The story of the emperor who called himself a god is more than ancient history.
It is a warning, carved deep into the hidden record of Rome, that power without limits can turn a man into a monster, and that even the self-proclaimed gods of the world are mortal in the end. So, as you drift towards sleep, remember, the line between worship and fear is thinner than marble and just as cold. Good night, and may your dreams be ruled by gentler gods.